For the longest time, Afrobeats has been the genre that everyone falls back to. Its use of modern instruments to create sounds that are Afrocentric has gained a spot on top music charts. Or is that all there is to it? Are Afrobeat songs getting on music charts because they're good or because they're profitable? Is this just another cash grab for big music groups in the industry? Let's take a deep dive into the history of Afrobeats and how major record labels are adopting the sound. Afrobeat was invented in the late 1970s by Fela Anikulapo Kuti from Nigeria, who combined West African highlife and Western jazz, R&B, punk, and soul. The aim of Afrobeat was political activism, designed to call out the Nigerian government at the time for their questionable leadership practices. Just like other political activists before him, Fela experienced pushback from the government until his death in 1997. But the music didn't die with him, as his children kept the legacy alive. However, the genre seemed to take a sharp turn as other African artists began to adopt the sound, but used it to express their love and inner desires. Some sang about money, while others sang about their fantasies, and it was with the Afrobeats created by Fela. The sound was quite popular in Africa because it belonged to them.
Sounds that went on to form Afrobeat had been established by musicians from Ghana.
The issues in Afrobeat started to arise when they allowed Western artists to borrow the sound, and things just started to go south. The most notable one was when Beyoncé decided to tap into her African roots and create an entire Afrobeats album. Well, Afrobeats took inspiration from different forms of Western music, but that still wasn't a pass for Western artists to try and take over the sound. After Beyoncé released her Afrobeats album, where she featured artists from different countries in Africa, people began to call her Mama Africa. Not only was that title disrespectful to the African women that have kept African music alive, like Angelique Kidjo, it was a spit on the continent's face. How can the work of one Western artist replace the work of hundreds of African artists? Anyway, after Beyoncé's successful Afrobeats album, other Western artists began to follow suit, but not immediately. The sound started to get a wider global reach after Burna Boy's album I Told Them started topping charts in Britain. It was seen as an impressive feat by Africans because the validation of Westerners was way more important than any African award or chart. However, as the genre was gaining popularity beyond its original continent, so were people finding new ways to capitalize on it. First, Sony Music started signing Afrobeats artists like Davido and Wizkid. While that was seen as an innocent move, there was more to it than meets the eye. With these African artists signed to Sony Music, the group had a greater control over their creative freedom. Now, we don't know the specifics of the contracts because despite being signed to Sony, these artists have maintained their individuality and creative freedom. However, more doors have opened for non-African artists to adopt the genre, and it has been a cringe fest. In 2022, a Korean artist that goes by the name Panamiko released a song titled Bolo. When the song came out, there was something off about it because it didn't sound anything like the K-pop people knew, and it was so unfamiliar. It was an Afrobeat song with Korean vocals, and it was just so unfamiliar. If you guessed that there was an outrage, then you are correct. The internet was divided with K-pop fans saying the song was a bop, and there was no need for Afrobeats lovers to tear the song apart. Afrobeats lovers, on the other hand, felt it was overboard, considering how Korea has used its entertainment scene to paint Africa in a bad light on different occasions. For the group saying they shouldn't have made an Afrobeat song, they thought it was disrespectful considering that black artists had to struggle before they were able to sing K-pop and be appreciated by the community. As if the outrage was not enough, in the early parts of 2024, a K-pop girl band, Les Seraphim, released a song called Smarter. The song had elements of Afrobeats underneath, but that was not the only thing. The dance for the song was similar to the South African dance Bacardi, which a South African artist, Tyla, brought to the limelight. It was obvious that Korean artists were taking ideas from African creatives, and they seemed to be claiming those ideas as theirs. Why was this move even possible in the first place? Afrocentric ideas have been long stolen for decades, but it became worse around 2020 as more people were beginning to pay attention. If you are able to brush up anything Afrocentric and give it a new name, you would get away with it because Africans are not gatekeepers and are just happy for their work to get out there. But that's now coming at the cost of losing their culture to the people who never appreciated it in the first place. Another reason non-Africans are able to steal these ideas is that Africans are yearning for global recognition, and that is actually the crux of the problem. In 2022, Selena Gomez hopped on the remix of a popular Afrobeat song called Calm Down by Nigerian artist Rema. The song was already doing well on its own, but the artist's management wanted the song to get a global audience, so when Selena got on the track, it felt like a privilege. Well, the remix did well, but in regards to maintaining the integrity of Afrobeats, there were some slight changes made to accommodate Selena Gomez.
Baby, calm down, calm down. Yo, this your body, it puts in my heart for lockdown.
A year after, the same artist featured Ice Spice on an Afrobeat song called Pretty Girl, and it was met with heavy criticism. Fans of the artist claimed that Ice Spice had no business being on an Afrobeat song because she was struggling to match up with the beat. The song was a flop because nobody talked about it after it came out, and it seemed like an experiment to see which kind of Western artist would fit the genre. It has never been bad to want to sell to an international market, but when you do it at the expense of selling your culture, then you could regret it later on. Close to the end of 2023, it was revealed that music groups like Universal have been trying to buy out African labels, including Mavin's Records, one of the best in Nigeria. The labels were actually considering the offer because it was a great and easy way to get into the international market. But there are so many downsides to these kinds of decisions. Catering to a new audience with a sound that has existed for years would mean that major changes would have to be made. Not every Western listener would flow with the overall vibe of Afrobeats, especially considering the fact that Afrobeats artists sing in their home language. What happens when the international audience starts to complain that they don't understand the songs? The artist would have to make adjustments, and that is already losing the truth of Afrobeats. Afrobeat artists would also have to collaborate with foreign artists that may or may not have rejected their sound in the first place. So these artists would have to start creating music because they need to maintain relevance and not because they enjoy it. Also, let's not forget the rise of AI over here in the West. Most music groups may soon start leaning towards AI because other aspects of the industry are also adopting it. What would happen to the artists who just wanted a spot in the global market? To make it worse, despite these music groups adopting Afrobeats, they are still not creating space for Africans to enjoy the global reach they are getting. They are constantly creating artists that are replicas of already popular artists and making them work hard schedules. When these artists that are sometimes called industry plants blow up, these music groups begin to create stories to make it seem like there's an invisible competition. When all these comparisons of who the better artist is come up, they are met with so much interest, further inciting rage. There is so much going on in the Afrobeat scene, and the sound could have evolved and created more space for people of color to explore their own creation. But the constant need for validation from the West is holding the genre back. This need for validation can be traced down to when Africans were told that they needed to be more sophisticated if they were ever going to match up to white people. It all started when racism was introduced to a continent filled with black people, and they started to fight within themselves for who was the one better fit to sit with white people. As they started to go away from their true nature just to get a seat at tables that originally rejected them, Africans have accepted any and everyone that has shown any form of interest in their craft. Right now, it is translated to their music, and they are way too open to foreign influence on their music. Foreign influence on Afrobeats means the sound will change, and so will the faces singing it also change. During Doja Cat's Scarlet Tour, she included an African dance called Amapiano into her set, and while it flowed fluidly, only Africans recognized the dance for what it was. Doja Cat is South African, but has never shown interest in the country, so people assume she's American. Beyoncé, who has also claimed to love Africa so much, has started working on country music and is hoping people will be receptive to it because it's her first time. Selena Gomez has not worked with any other Afrobeats artist since Rema, and Ice Spice has gone back to her New York rap. Korean bands are still taking ideas from African artists without giving credit, and it's disappointing to see. Big music groups are taking advantage of the desperation of Afrobeat artists that want to sing to an international market, and it's becoming a menace. The music needs to expand quite all right, but the history behind it should not be thrown aside. When more Westerners adopt the sound, it will only be a matter of time before it takes on a new form and a new pioneer will be named. Promote your music beyond your borders, but stay true to its origin and keep it pushing so future generations don't get the wrong idea.